Did you send over the bank records of Devin Nunes or Trump supporters to the special counsel when he wanted that information?
People have to grow up here, okay, and stop making up things and stuff like that. So, and I can't talk about an individual account. We do not bank people, debank people's religious or political affiliations. Number two is, I don't like debanking people. We live under very strict rules and regulations and requirements, and to protect the country, and we have to report things to the government. We're required to report things to the government. We don't give information to the government just because they ask. We're subpoenaed. We are required by court to give it to the government. And I've been following subpoenas with this administration, the last administration, the administration before.
And that was JPMorgan Chase Chairman and CEO Jamie Dimon responding to claims from Trump media that it was debanked and that its bank records were sent to former special counsel Jack Smith as part of his Arctic frost investigation that targeted President Trump and his supporters. On Wednesday, Smith sat for a closed-door deposition in front of the House Judiciary Committee for more than 8 hours, saying politics had no role in his investigations and prosecutions of President Trump. Joining me now with reaction is Trump Media CEO and Chairman of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, Devin Nunes. Devin, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. And you've got big news of your own. So we're going to get to Trump Media and Technologies merger in a moment. But first, you just heard Jamie Dimon's response to you telling me on this program that JPMorgan sent over your bank records to Jack Smith. How do you respond?
Well, what I can tell you is just sticking to the facts, and that is that the Florida Attorney General, Uthmeier, has an investigation into JPMorgan, maybe others, for getting our bank records. We are a Florida company. We expect to be protected. We believe Florida laws were broken. I think this is potentially even a criminal investigation. So we're happy that the Florida Attorney General is looking into this. We hope that JPMorgan cooperates. I'll take Jamie Dimon at his word that maybe he didn't know about it. I find that hard to believe. I understand he wants to cooperate with investigations, but after watching the witch hunt that went on for the last 10 years against President Trump and his family involving this whole Russia hoax, he or his people should have known better. And I won't get into the back and forth that we had at the time, but we essentially called him out and the bank, not him personally, but we called out JPMorgan at the time and said, this looks very political. So, that's all information that we will turn over to the Florida Attorney General, and we may take actions of our own. We'll just see where this investigation lands.
So, what about the comment and the fact that he made, and it's true, they got subpoenaed, okay? Jack Smith is using corporate America to do its dirty work. They subpoenaed Verizon. They subpoenaed AT&T. They subpoenaed the banks. They wanted bank records, phone records. Even Kevin McCarthy, he was one of the leading people in the country. He was Speaker of the House. And what happened? AT&T gave it up because they got subpoenaed. And Jack Smith wanted his phone records.
Yeah, and part of what needs to happen here is people that broke the law need to be criminally prosecuted. So it's nice that the Congress is looking into this, but ultimately the American people, the Department of Justice, the FBI have had a very dark chapter in U.S. history. It has to be cleaned up. There's multiple investigations, at least reported, that are going on into all of these witch hunts that went on against the president. And as you know, I've said for many, many years now, number one, this was all a cover-up and a con job by the DNC, by President Obama, to cover up for what? For Hillary Clinton's emails. I know this goes back a long way, but that's what started in 2016. We know that. There was a cover-up. That's where the conspiracy begins, and it goes all the way to the raid at Mar-a-Lago and then into Jack Smith's phony investigation. And, furthermore, Maria, just what did we learn this week? Another important fact. I came on this show right after the Mar-a-Lago raid, and I said, this is outrageous.
Yes,
I know exactly what these lowlifes are looking for. They're looking for our report, the House Republican report that we did, because it's a damning report. Now, the report wasn't at Mar-a-Lago, but they went looking for it. So the National Archives, which made that referral, needs to be investigated. And I think this whole, now that you have the FBI itself saying at the time they were uncomfortable with raiding Mar-a-Lago and the fact that they were looking for our document, should, I think, give people pause for a document that they had no evidence or even a clue that Mar-a-Lago had our document. That, by the way, was sitting over at the CIA, locked behind a safe in a safe.
Yeah. And I have the document in my hands right now, the majority staff report on the intelligence community assessment, Russia's influence campaign targeting the 2016 U.S. presidential election. In this report, there are damning pieces of evidence that shows that this was actually a witch hunt from day one. And you think they wanted that, and that's why they went to Mar-a-Lago. But, Devin, we've been talking about this for 10 years, and still I haven't seen any accountability. Will there ever be any prosecutions?
Well, look, that's the important point of what came. I said this on your show, 3 or 4 years ago, whenever the raid happened. And then it took until just last week when the news broke that, yes, what I said 3 years ago was actually true. They were looking for that document that you have in your hand. So what does that mean? That means that I think that Mar-a-Lago, President Trump and his family are at the center of this. I think that in Florida, this now puts jurisdiction clearly in Florida. And that's how you get accountability, is by bringing criminal charges, criminal investigations in Florida against people who perpetrated this on the American people. Because, look, as we know, we've got all kinds of problems in the court systems. Anything that ends up in the broader D.C. area or in a blue state is problematic. The beauty of this is that the jurisdiction now, because of that evidence that came out in the past week, that they were looking for that document at Mar-a-Lago, I think that's the center of this whole investigation, because it was preposterous. It sent messages all over the globe that America now is a third world country where we're raiding a former president's home. It was a message sent around the world. It now has to be cleaned up. People are going to be held accountable. I strongly feel that way, and this was an important piece of evidence that came out in the last week.
Well, I mean, what if it doesn't get concluded while President Trump is in office? What if President Trump finishes his term and leaves office? Does everything go away?
Well, look, I think if President Trump leaves office, it will depend on who follows in his footsteps, but you can't take 10, 15 years of corruption and clean it up in 10 months. But that's what I know that Kash Patel, Attorney General Bondi, they're doing their best to get it done. And look, let's see. A lot of evidence has come out. First, you got to get the facts, you got to get the evidence, and then you have to build the case. My guess is that there'll be multiple investigations that are ongoing right now.
And the Jack Smith behind closed doors interview. What is your takeaway there? He said politics had nothing to do with anything that he was doing, Devin.
Right. Jack Smith is a leftist. He's a very dangerous man who's been at the center of power, working with Obama's top people. He's known as their henchman, the guy that they sent in, their fixer, so to speak. So whatever Jack Smith says in public, he actually means the opposite. Or another way to say it is, whatever he accuses you of doing is what he's actually doing. Yeah.
And I've seen that before many times, as the Democrats have liked to say in the past that President Trump is a threat to democracy, while in fact they are in the middle of obstructing democracy by selecting people instead of electing people, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. And that's where I think these investigations need to go. And look, ultimately, justice delayed is justice denied. But I feel strongly that the team that President Trump has in place is going to track all these issues down and hold people accountable.
All right. Well, you tried to hold people accountable when it came to social media. You got in the job to run Trump Media and Technology Group and created Truth Social with President Trump and built that company. Now you are merging the company with TAE Technologies, a nuclear fusion company. We're going to have a break right now. When we come back, I want to get your take on whether or not this is a completely new direction for Truth Social. And what happens to social media now that you're in the energy business? We've got more with Devin Nunes when we come right back. Stay with us on Sunday Morning Futures. And we are back with former House Intelligence Committee Chairman and former California Congressman Devin Nunes, the CEO of Trump Media and Technology Group. Devin, you made a huge announcement this week, a $6 billion merger with TAE Technologies. This is a nuclear fusion company. Tell me what you're doing here, and the future of this company will look very different.
Yeah, look, it's a big issue going forward for the next 20 years. America is leading the AI race, electric cars, moving everything to electric. There's only one problem. If you don't produce enough power and enough energy, you can't win that race. And so as we look at the most important issues at the highest level, we solve the technology front, built it all ourselves to build True Social and our streaming component. We built that without big tech. Then we started looking around at, okay, we're a company, Trump Media and Technology Group, that's going to do big things. That's what people expect of us. And what's the most important issue at the highest level? The country needs to be energy independent. So I always say that President Trump didn't need another company when he created this. It was a company that was created out of necessity because we needed our voices back. And now what we have is a juggernaut of a company that can go in and take on the biggest issue that's out there today. And we looked around at all the different fusion technology and other nuclear technology. And I strongly feel that TAE, with their 400 engineers and scientists, they are best positioned to win this fusion war. That it really is the start of a war on who's going to be the first to accomplish this. Remember, Maria, this technology has been around for some 75 years. It's just that for whatever reason, the United States 20 years ago decided to get into windmills, solar panels, and everything else, while China was building nuclear power plants, coal plants, et cetera. So, when Admiral Rickover, a name that everybody should get to know, was the father of atomic power. This next generation, so that was old school fusion power, the nuclear reactors you see now that a lot of people don't want in their backyard. The beauty of fusion is that it's clean. And I know that President Trump, and I talked to him a couple of years about this. He had an uncle that was very involved early on in this technology. In his office in Mar-a-Lago, he has some pictures and information on his uncle. This is something the president worries about. He worries about nuclear proliferation and wants to make sure that the future is clean. And look, this is the holy grail. Like I said, 75 years. And now this company, 25 years of private funding, Maria. This has not been some government subsidized deal. It's what I really like about them. They have had to do it the hard way. You had great investors like the famed Wall Street investor Stanley Druckenmiller, who I know you know well. Chuck Schwab, another famed investor. You have Chevron, Google. So bringing those types of investors, looking at that, bringing them into our company with this technology gives me, and just my background in studying these energy issues and working on these energy issues and nuclear power for my time in Congress. And then if you kind of match the level, looking at it at the defense intelligence level that I spent so much time on, China's doubled their electricity output in the last 8 years.
Yeah.
They're now 3 to 4 times as much power as we have. These are real issues that we have to tackle. And I would say this now, all Americans should want our company to succeed, because if we win, everybody else wins. This is really as big as the first Manhattan Project if we're going to win this race here in the United States.
I guess what I want to know is, why would nuclear fusion be the answer? President Trump's agenda includes all hands on deck for lots of different energy. Why nuclear fusion to fuel the AI revolution? We're going to take a break. I'll ask you that. And I also got to get your take on China, an aggressive competitor and adversary. We'll be right back with more on Sunday Morning Futures. Welcome back, and I am back with Trump Media CEO Devin Nunes. Devin, you're doing this deal with TAE Technologies for nuclear fusion. I mean, how do we know that's going to be enough to stop China and its aggressive behavior? I'm reading a story now from Bloomberg, and it says China's rare earth magnet exports to the United States declined in November. They're still playing games, it sounds like, in terms of sending us the rare earth minerals that they've promised.
Well, that was one of the reasons why we like the TAE technology so much. It wasn't just that they had been around 25 years and had built 5 generations of this machine and are ready to go construction this year or next year in 2026. It's also because they don't need those rare earth elements and minerals. That's the beauty of this technology, and that's the ingenuity and innovation that we need in this country, and why we need to invest in these people that have been working on this for so long, Maria. They've thought about this. They don't want to, and I think that's one of the challenges that we have with whether it's windmills, which I think are really bad, solar panels, which I think still rely on a lot of those, the batteries rely on the rare earth minerals. almost everything that we do relies on these. And that's why the next breakthrough over the next 20 years is going to be in this area in nuclear fusion. And it's why it's such a game changer and why we have to win that race. Because as more and more, whether you believe we're going to have 10%, 20%, or 50% more power needs over the next 20 years, one thing is for sure, we're going to need more, not less. And we're going to need to lower the price to the consumer, not just for people to heat and cool their homes, but also so that we can bring manufacturing back. So this puts Trump Media and Technology Group at the center, at the most important issue at the highest level for all the other industries to succeed. We need this to succeed.
Devin, thank you so much. Great to talk with you, Devin Nunes. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.